Hi, it's Jane Jackson, and welcome to Your Career Podcast. Here's where you'll get the career tips and inspiration you need to take control of your career. Welcome to episode 275 of Your Career Podcast. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Lynnaire Johnston. She is a top-ranked international LinkedIn strategist, trainer, and author dedicated to empowering professionals worldwide. Lynnaire brings a wealth of experience drawn from a diverse background in journalism, broadcasting, and copywriting to her work helping individuals and companies leverage LinkedIn for career and professional success. Recognized globally for her expertise, ranked #1 in New Zealand and among the top LinkedIn experts worldwide, Lynnaire is also the best-selling author of two influential LinkedIn books, Link Ability and Business Gold. As founder of the Link Ability membership site, she provides practical, actionable strategies through LinkedIn makeovers, personalized coaching, and content creation that transforms professional profiles and opens doors to new opportunities. And let's welcome the very lovely Lynnaire Johnston to Your Career Podcast. Welcome, Lynnaire.
Kia ora, Jane. Thank you so much for having me.
I've wanted to interview you for a long, long time because you provide so much amazing advice on LinkedIn for anybody who wants to excel on this platform. I want to learn all about the real Lynnaire Johnston and the lady behind the LinkedIn guru. As you know, on this podcast, it's all about career transitions and what inspires you and how you adapt to change. And you've had multiple changes in your life as well in career. And so let's kick us off with, what were your early aspirations when you were a little girl with regard to your career, Lynnaire?
I wanted to be an air hostess, Jane. Now, of course, these days they're known as flight attendants, but I was absolutely convinced that that was going to be my career path. Well, it turned out that I'm a little more opinionated than is ideal for being a flight attendant. And by the time I left school, I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I knew what I didn't want to do. I didn't want to be a nurse. I didn't want to be a teacher like my mother. And I really didn't want to go to university and spend another 3 years of studying. But my mother was the school guidance counselor. And so she laid out a bunch of different ideas for me. And one of them was to go to journalism school with the aim of working in public relations at the end of that. Well, public relations in those days was fairly new, and I didn't really know much about it, but it sounded like a very good idea to me. And I can tell you, Jane, that after a number of decades working, that I have never worked in public relations. I have done some public relations work, but I never made that my career path at all. And so it's been very interesting for me to look back now and see where it all started. And I recognized, I think yesterday, probably for the first time while I was thinking about this, that by going to journalism school and using my mother's contacts as a guidance counselor to find out about it and to learn exactly what was required and then to apply and get a place, was the very earliest mentoring that I had ever had, because for a lot of my career, mentoring has never been a thing with a name at all. And so I never really saw it for what it was. But I now look back and go, yes, my mother and a friend of hers who coached me in preparation for my interview for journalism school were my very first mentors.
Oh, how wonderful. You know, it's so important to have mentors. And, I was smiling when you told me what your early aspirations were, because as we said before we started this podcast, I don't know a lot. I do a little bit of prep, but not a lot. So I love to be surprised. And I was surprised because my careers guidance counselor when I was in high school told me not to become an air hostess or flight
I think that was
attendant.
very wise, Jane.
No,
Imagine
but
our lives now if we had been.
but the funny thing was that I didn't listen to his advice. I went for interviews, I got the job, and I ended up being what people in the old days called trolley dollies. So I was a trolley dolly for Korean Airlines and then later for British Airways. But that's another story for another time. But journalism, how wonderful, because you said right at the beginning that you were opinionated. We need opinions, don't we? And that really is what journalism is all about, because you can have your op-eds and then you can have your reporting. But when you went into journalism and the little bit of research that I've done so far, so I'm not totally surprised, NZME, you were a broadcaster, a radio announcer, and a journalist. So tell me, was that your very first job?
Yes, when I finished the journalism
Mhm.
diploma, I went to work at Radio Hauraki, which is still a radio station that exists today. It was New Zealand's first private radio station, and it's the Kiwi equivalent of Radio Caroline in the UK,
Mm.
which had to broadcast from a ship
Yes.
outside the local territorial waters when it first went on air because private radio stations were illegal in New Zealand at that
Mm.
time. But when I joined, or by the time I joined Radio Hauraki, it was on land and had been on land for a few years. So it was sort of outside the establishment, Radio New Zealand being the establishment, and the New Zealand Broadcasting Authority, but it was still very much a maverick. And being a bit of a maverick and a black sheep myself, that suited me perfectly. So I started there as a cadet reporter in the newsroom. In those days, radio stations had their own newsrooms and good levels of staffing. But I was one of only two women. And so you can tell from that things have changed a lot between now and then. Journalism itself has changed tremendously. But I learned a lot of very useful things there. I learned, for example, that you shouldn't wear a skirt on a day that you have to interview the captain of a frigate because frigate access is via ladders. I learned a lot of really useful things, including interviewing people and how not to be afraid, Jane, to ask questions.
Mm.
Because as a journalist, you're not expected to know particularly a lot about the topic. But you are expected to ask incisive questions from both sides of the subject. So those who might be pro something and those who might be against. And that's something I think we've lost in the
Mhm.
ensuing years. But interviewing has been something that I've really put on the back burner for a lot of years. And now, with the different work I do today, that's back in the foreground. And I'm really enjoying it because I'm like you, I like asking questions. I'm
Mm.
basically nosy, Jane. Really? Let's put it down to that.
I think maintaining a curious and inquisitive mind is really important. And, you know, a background in journalism is such a solid grounding, isn't it? Because having that open, curious mindset, asking the right questions, really listening for what the true meaning is of the words that are coming back to you, that's what you do. And I love it that you mention it's so important to get the opinion from one side and
Mhm.
the other side as well, because I think in more recent days, there's a lot of shouting the other side down, whatever side you're on. And I think it's such a shame because I love a fair debate, you know,
Mm,
and if at the end you agree to disagree, well, that's fine. It's your prerogative as well, yes. And I'm
yes.
sure that you've kept that mindset and fairness as you progressed in your career. So what would you say were the key skills, in addition to obviously curiosity and being able to listen and ask very good questions? What were the key skills that you developed during your journalism career?
Writing was
Mm.
the major one because I might have come out with a journalism diploma, but really I couldn't write a sentence to save my life. English was always my favourite subject, but even so, it was a bit of an eye-opener when I went into a newsroom and discovered that, in fact, I didn't really have the skills that I thought I had at that point. So I did learn the basics really quickly, and I'm a good learner. I'm a lifelong learner, but I do learn, and particularly from mistakes, which I make a lot of. And so I think that's another characteristic that stood me in good stead over the years. Sometimes I have to make a mistake more than once, Jane,
Mhm.
just
Mm.
quietly, because that's life. But generally, I think learning from your mistakes and always trying to do your best. There are some other things that I learned as part of that, which may not really be obvious, but I learned to work to deadlines. When you are responsible for coming up with an hourly radio news bulletin, you really understand deadlines very well. And I'm still work to deadlines really well even today. And I think too, also there is a measure of confidence that it instills with you. Perhaps not always, but generally, I think that putting yourself out there in a way that means that you're asking difficult questions of people is something that does give you confidence in yourself and being able to handle yourself in different situations.
Mm. I think those skills also lend themselves very well to career transition too,
Mm.
yes? Because, if you're going to be looking for the next job, there is a deadline. You need to get on with it,
Mhm.
basically. You have to have the confidence to market yourself, and you need to be able to write well to tell your career story too. So you were at NZME for about 11 years, and then you transitioned into becoming an editor, yes?
Yes.
And so tell me about that. What prompted the change? Did you just basically have enough and think, I want to go into a different direction, or was there something else?
Well, in actual fact, Jane, I got fired.
Oh, what did you say, Lynnaire? What did you
Well,
do?
I made the mistake of going on holiday. Now, excuse me, being fired from a radio job, and I was a radio announcer at that stage. So I
Mm,
was co-hosting the breakfast show on a different
mm,
radio
mm,
station by that stage. And the ratings weren't very positive at that particular point. And I was the easiest person to get rid of to see if it was possible to bring the ratings back up again. And so that meant that I needed to go and find something else. So I tried
mm,
something else for a while, and that was marketing. I did some shopping centre marketing, which I didn't really enjoy terribly much, and then found my way to writing and editing for
mm,
magazines. Now, I've
mm,
been one of those people, Jane, who all my life has had side gigs before that word was even invented. We called it freelancing back in those days, and even when I was at Radio Harrick in the early days, I would write magazine articles about visiting rock stars, that kind of thing. And that was independent of my main job. So when it came to looking for something new, working with those skills was a good fallback position. That was a good thing that I could transition to. And I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed meeting new people and interviewing them about all kinds of things. So obviously rock stars, but also politicians, people in high level of business,
mm,
Olympians, all kinds of really interesting people. And I found that that was really satisfying until I found myself working as an editor on publications that I didn't really enjoy a great deal.
mm,
And that was at the point where I decided that I really needed to be doing something else. The other thing that precipitated this particular move, Jane, was I had an epiphany. This was unrelated to being fired, by the way, but I had an epiphany when I turned 40 that meant that I realized that within a decade or maybe a little longer, I would be unemployable. And I recognized there were a lot of people out there, even back in those days, who once they got a little older or a bit further through their careers were being made redundant.
mm,
Women were hitting the glass ceiling. There were lots of different reasons why it might be that by the time I got to a certain age, that I might not be a suitable candidate for roles. Now, I've been a worker all my life. It's something I've always done, and I would be bereft if I didn't have some work to do. And so I cast around and looked for something different. And As it usually does, the universe provided in the form of a colleague of mine who mentioned copywriting in a course that he had done that he really thought might be of value to me. And it was hugely, and it set me on the path of deciding that I would go out on my own as a copywriter.
Mm.
And so I spent quite a number of years writing things like websites. And this was at the time when the world was moving very fast to an online world. Before that, it had been very manual. Everything was written, publications were printed, Jane. Do you remember magazines that dropped in your mailbox, and newspapers? And so things changed a lot during that time, and I found myself writing websites eventually, which of course I wasn't doing at the beginning of that, and doing other forms of online work too. So the world has changed hugely
Mm.
since once I left my journalism college, and I was taught to type on a manual typewriter. Now I dictate, Jane. I dictate into a machine. Who knew that that would be possible?
I know, and then it just transcribes it and even edits for us, which
I
is
know, it's
absolutely
fabulous.
amazing.
I love it. Although I do not want to lose my writing skills. I think
Mm,
that's
mm,
very important to keep in
mm.
mind.
Yes, I do miss my old manual typewriter when I was in high school. I have to admit, I wish I kept it. It would be worth a fortune
I
now.
took one around the world with me when I traveled, the portable typewriter.
I know, and now all we do is bring our iPhones with us, and
I
that's
know
basically
it's.
everything. The
I'm
entire
sure something's been lost in that, though.
Now, what's interesting is you were very insightful in forward planning for your career. So
Mm.
thinking like round about 40, and there's been a lot in the papers recently about 40 and 50-year-olds being thrown on the scrap heap. Employers don't want to look at them, and it's causing a lot of concern as well. But early on, you already planned for that and thought, okay, what can I do? Rather than putting my hand up saying, oh, pick me for a job, you decided to freelance and start your own business. And so, with copywriting, obviously, you had a very successful and long career copywriting. What I'm interested in is because now you are the LinkedIn lady, link ability, yes. So, having a very successful copywriting business, what was it that prompted you to shift from copywriting to specializing fully on LinkedIn and LinkedIn training?
I fell in love. I fell in love
Yeah.
with LinkedIn, Jane.
Mm.
Once I discovered that LinkedIn allowed short form content, what we would call posts now,
Mm.
rather than just the long form articles that originally started out with. I felt like I had come home. I felt I was in my happy place. And I started out writing about writing because that was what I knew. And then as I started to learn more about LinkedIn, I started to write more about LinkedIn and the lessons I was learning, and I was sharing those ideas with other people as well. Then the odd person asked me to help them with their LinkedIn. And so it went on until one morning I literally woke up and discovered I'd been added to the top 20 list of LinkedIn experts, Australia and New Zealand.
Yeah.
I didn't consider myself an expert at that stage, Jane, at all, not by any stretch of the imagination. But, if somebody else says that about you, you do need to take it seriously. At that stage, I was still doing my copywriting and doing my LinkedIn, but I much preferred to do the LinkedIn work. And so the copywriting became a bit of a chore. It paid the bills until I could move directly or completely into LinkedIn work, which was always a bit of a gamble, but it really paid off for me, and I'm really happy. And that's been nearly a decade that I've been doing that now, and I still absolutely love it. And I
Mhm.
love it for the very reasons that we've just been talking about. Change, being able to talk to people all over the world, and that's
Mhm.
one of the real benefits of having this kind of expert status is that people will say yes, even people you would never dream of
Mhm.
asking to speak on your show, they'll say yes.
Mm.
And I just love the fact that that means um, I can bring people to my network who would not otherwise do be there simply because they have agreed to talk with me. And so there were just so many benefits from it, to say nothing of the relationships that I have built. A lot of people have become good friends of mine through LinkedIn. And I've now got a network of people all around the world. And one of the things about living in New Zealand is a lot of people come here. You would be surprised at the number of people who decide that visiting New Zealand, thank you, Peter Jackson, is a really a good place to come on their holidays. And I've met some really fantastic people who have traveled from the other side of the world to New Zealand. And I
Mhm.
go out of my way to go and meet them in person because nothing beats that personal relationship, does it?
Oh, I mean, isn't it wonderful when you meet someone online through LinkedIn and it's like a professional relationship, and then you develop that professional relationship, and then you travel for business or you travel for holiday, and they say, "Oh, let's meet up. Let's meet face to face." Because taking the online offline is very, very special. But back to you now, Lynnaire. So you transitioned into forming your business Linkability, and you are now the published author of Linkability, your book, which we can see behind you for those watching the video, and also Business Gold that you co-authored as well. With regard to transitioning into running your own business, building your brand, doing it at the age of over 40, taking control of your own career, what would you say a book does for your business and your career? Because, I've published Navigating Career Crossroads, and it was 10 years ago when it first was published, and it's made such a difference to my business. How has it been for your business?
It's opened doors that I did not know existed, Jane.
Mm, mm,
And I decided to write the book just after I had been added to this list of LinkedIn experts. And it was just at the start of COVID,
mm.
which meant, of course, that business was a bit slight anyway. And it gave me a really good opportunity to put some time and effort into writing a book, because what does every expert have? They have a book. And I cannot tell you the value that that has given me. It put me on the international stage. It brought me to the attention of people who I can still consider to be real experts on LinkedIn, and allowed me to form professional relationships with people that wouldn't have been possible otherwise. To my mind, it was the best money on marketing I have ever spent, and I did put quite a bit of money into doing it. But my concern, I think, around books, Jane, is that now that people can use AI to write them,
Oh,
their
dear
value is
AI.
going to be much diminished. It
Mm.
is so easy now to not be putting all the effort. Now, you and I both know how hard it is to write a book.
Yes.
Been a professional writer all my adult life, you'd think it came easily to me, but it didn't. And I worked very hard on it. And I think we did 8 different, iterations of it before it went to print finally. And even then, I still wanted to make more changes. So it's really hard work. It takes a lot of discipline and but knowing that that is a goal that is something you absolutely have to do. You have to be determined, I think. So making it so much easier through AI, I think, is a shame. I understand the value of being able to use AI. I'm learning it myself this year and having great fun with it. But for me, it really opened doors in a way that I really had no understanding of it doing before I wrote it.
You know what I found was really interesting for me. Writing the book, it took me a year. A lot of evenings and days when it's like, oh, kill me now. I just want to go and have dinner or go to the
Been
beach
there.
or just do something different. Even do the ironing would be better than sitting down here writing and
Mm.
writing. But I had a mission, and it was to make careers guidance accessible and affordable to the world. And that was what kept me focused. And I'm sure that you had a focus there to get your word out as well. But sort of sacrificing time to get something done properly. And then, of course, I hired an editor who was able to go through everything with me.
Oh.
And you need editors,
Mm.
you're an editor, you know how important having a professional who actually understands the nuance of what you're
Yes.
really trying to get across is important.
Mm.
And spending that much time to get the project, the book, written and then published and the book launch and all that, it was like a personal project and a big milestone for me. It was something that made me feel very proud that I'd spent that much effort to get
Mm.
it out, as you will have done as well.
Yeah.
And now I see so many people, they pump out books every 2 or 3 weeks. and and it's I worry about the quality because I know that it's very much AI assisted and AI is a wonderful thing. However, so much of it is taken from what's already been and the original thought. What's your opinion on that? I worry that original thought is becoming diluted.
I agree. And I also think that it is training people not to think critically. You and I both put our knowledge and expertise into our books, but a lot of people don't necessarily have the knowledge or the expertise, so they're relying on AI to fill in those gaps. So then, how can you claim it to be your own work?
Hmm.
Which it's not anymore, is it, if you are using AI? In fact, you don't know whose work it is
Hmm.
because AI has been trained on books like yours and mine, with no credit, I might just add, but also a lot of other material too. So it's a mishmash of all kinds of things.
Hmm.
And I'm a glass half full person, Jane. So I always like to see opportunities where other people just see challenges or obstacles. And I think there is going to be a resurgence, shall we say, of this critical thinking skill and the relevance of knowledge and expertise. I don't think we're there yet. I think we've still got to go further down the rabbit hole on this one first.
Hmm.
But I do believe that in the longer term, people like you and I who have got experience, we've been around a long time, we've learned and honed our craft. We have experience and expertise and knowledge that you couldn't get if you were starting out today. By virtue of the fact we have been doing this for years, dare I say it, decades in my case. And so I think that there will come a time where we will be valued again for that. But at the moment, I think we have to focus on remaining relevant in the sea of AI slop, as a new
Hmm.
term I learned only the other day.
Uh,
Like LinkedIn, AI's got its own vocabulary. You need a dictionary just about to understand it.
hmm.
And so, consequently, I think there's going to be a lot of change that we can't even foresee at this point in the next 2 to 3 years. I'm awfully glad I'm here to see it, but I
Hmm.
do think the change is going to be huge. Even in the 6 months that I have been really focused on learning AI, I've been astonished at its progress, Jane, and
Yeah.
what it can do now that it couldn't do earlier in the year.
Yeah. It really is phenomenal the way how it has taken over just about every aspect of business and life as well. And everywhere you turn,
Yeah.
without realizing it, it's actually AI. Now, currently, it's the bright, shiny object. And this bright, shiny object I know is not going away because it does a lot of good as well. But I've been reading some reports where it's doing some not so good things when it comes to like artificial intimacy and relationships as well, which is kind of scary. But this is a whole topic that we could spend another hour on. Let's go back to LinkedIn. Now,
Yes.
linkability, Lynnaire. So you fell in love with LinkedIn. You know it's just the most amazing platform. There are over 1 billion members. We have a global reach as a result of it. I love LinkedIn, as you know, and it really is the perfect place for job seekers and businesses to be in order to build their brand to attract business or attract opportunities. And so with Linkability, you provide a lot of training. So what's the premise of your business? What is it that you offer and what do you hope to achieve?
I'm motivated by helping others, Jane.
Mm,
Everything I do is around helping other people to achieve their professional goals, and my vehicle is
mm,
LinkedIn. And so, on the back of the book, which is called Linkability, I decided that I wanted to set up a members community because there's only me, and I can only help people one to one for so many hours a day. And I wanted to be able to help more people to be able to understand the intricacies of LinkedIn, which has got so much more complicated in the time I've been here, and help them understand some of the new trends, what works and what doesn't, what mistakes not to make. And to do that, having a members group meant I could help one person could help many people. And so that's what I've been focused on, and that's what I'm inspired by. And what I've been really intrigued to discover around this, Jane, is that it's not a huge group, it's quite a small group of people who are often experts in their own individual fields. We've come together to learn about how to use LinkedIn better. But it's really become a community.
Mm.
And people are building their own relationships with other members. They're doing things in their own groups. They're cross eventing is what I mean. It's a crazy term, but what I mean by that is you and I are here. We're on your podcast. Next week you're going to be on my LinkedIn live stream,
Mm.
and other members are doing that with each other as well. And I love that kind of collaboration that it has engendered in people, which is not something that I expected. And I just think that LinkedIn is a platform that seems to, well, I don't know about generally, but my network seems to be made up of people who like to share and help others. It
Mm.
just seems to be that way. And so, of course, I think all of LinkedIn is like that because you can only see it from your own point of view.
Yes.
And the fact that the people in my linkability community do that really just makes my heart sing. And I
Mm.
just love hearing about situations where the people have helped each other individually. And the group dynamic has been one that I have really, really enjoyed, I have to say. But so are the events. Now, we do, as you know, because you are a member of my
Mm.
Linkability members community,
Yes.
you know that we have fortnightly events in that. But I also do LinkedIn live streams. And I've been doing events live on LinkedIn for several years. In fact, as soon as they gave me permission to do so. And I was doing audio events quite a lot for quite a long time. And at the end of last year, LinkedIn ripped that away from us and
Mm.
put LinkedIn Lives into the audio events, or the other way around. The one style of event now instead of
Yes.
two separate formats. And that has given me a whole new lease of life, I have to say. With events, I used to enjoy the audio only events because the radio broadcaster and me came out in
Mm.
those. But with the lives, they are doing a very similar thing to my linkability community in that they are bringing people together and they form their own little community within the actual event itself. And that wasn't possible with audio events because there was no comment feed or thread. But now with the live streams, because they're on the live platform, there is. And so you've got what's going on the stage, if you like, or on the screen. And then alongside that, you've got what's going on in the comments, and people are having relationships and chatting and talking about this and that. And that's what I really love about it. It's people building relationships in between learning about LinkedIn and various other things that might be going on. And so you can see, Jane, that I am still in love with LinkedIn even after these years because of the different ways that we can now reach our audience. Video is another example.
Mm.
LinkedIn recently made that. You've noticed, haven't you, that I've managed to deflect really nicely away from me to talk
I
about favorite topic,
I
etc.
know you
I
have.
know
I'm
you're
going to
not going to let
rein
me do
you in
this
a
very much
minute.
longer.
I'm going to
Video.
rein
Let
you
me just
in.
say video, underlined an exclamation mark, and I'll stop there.
But you know what? You leverage video so well on LinkedIn. And here's where I want to do a segue into the beautiful videos that you share while you're standing out in your garden. And
Yes.
that's how I have been able to feel that I've got to know you so well, because it's not just you in an office, spouting about LinkedIn and what you can do here and what you can do there. It's you out in the garden finding ways to connect real nature with the learnings life learnings really, and then how you relate it back to LinkedIn, which I think is really clever. And also, every time you do share one of your videos, of course, I'm looking at the garden. Oh, what's in bloom? What is in bloom? What's going on with that bit of grass over there? And what it does is it makes someone in a different country it brings them into your living room or your own office space or home office. And I think that's the beauty of LinkedIn, is that it enables you to get to know each other
Yes.
in a way, and not just you consuming someone else's content, but also being able to interact with them. And so back to the LinkedIn Lives and the LinkedIn audio, I love the way that it's melded like podcasting, and obviously I'm a podcaster, podcasting with talkback radio, which I also enjoy listening to, because with a podcast, it kind of goes one way. People are just listening, and if they want to interact with you, they have to email you or message you or call you. But then on a LinkedIn Live audio event, they can contribute right away, and you can bring people up on the stage, you can give them the kudos and be able to share their expertise as well, which is wonderful. And also with the LinkedIn Lives, even though it's video, because of that chat function,
Mm.
everyone can contribute and people can connect with each other, and it facilitates more connection, doesn't it?
It
So it's going to
does.
be very exciting joining you next week on your
Yes.
LinkedIn Live. Such an honor. Lynnaire Johnston has invited me on her LinkedIn Live. I'm excited. But let's go back to LinkedIn now. You, LinkedIn lady, what would you say are the three, okay, top really good features that have dropped on LinkedIn this year?
This year, there have been very few,
Mm.
Jane.
Mm.
LinkedIn has not brought in many new things at all. And that's on the back of having more than 250 last
Yes,
year. So it's
yes.
really dropped dramatically.
Mm.
And it seems to be that they are doubling down on features that they have already put in place that they want to improve, which I think is a good thing.
Mm.
So I'm going to just crib slightly here and say that I think moving audios into lives is a
Mm.
good move. So I'll make that the first thing because
Yeah.
we are using that a lot and find it really, really valuable. The next thing I think is video. They have really changed what we can do with video and how video shows up on LinkedIn. Now, they are still working on this, and that's one of the things that makes life so interesting on LinkedIn is there are always changes. You never know what's going to be on your screen or what you're going to find when you wake up tomorrow morning. And there have been a lot of changes, but it's fair to say that that LinkedIn's pushing or boosting of video this year has been a very interesting dynamic to see. That's not to say that this is new particularly, but the way they are making it available is new
Mm.
to a lot of us this year. And the third thing kind of ties in with that, which is a specific feature, and that is the addition of video at the top of our articles and newsletters. Now, I'm a great fan of long form content. And I do think that articles and newsletters have a very good place in the content lineup on LinkedIn, particularly now that organic reach has dropped considerably. But people, strangely enough, in this day and age, still want to read and they want to read in-depth stuff. And if you're an expert and you're an opinionated expert and you've got information you want people to share, you cannot always do that within a 3,000 character post.
Mm.
So long form articles and newsletters are a much better way to do it. And of course, with those, you can format your text, you can add videos into them, images into them, and tag people and put all kinds of interesting things in them that make them look fantastic, that make them look like an online version, an interactive version, if you're putting videos in, of a magazine article from your, the most expensive magazine you can imagine. And so consequently, I really do think that's a good idea. So the addition of a video at the top
Mm.
is brilliant because it gives you an opportunity then to talk about what people will see below in the article itself. Whereas some people might look at an image and go, oh no, I don't think I'll bother with that and move on. Whereas video has that scroll stopping power. And I think if you put on top of that a caption or a title, then people will go, oh, I think I better have a look at this. This looks interesting. And will actually stop and look at it, which means then it's a bit like a headline. It's done its job. It's got you to stop and have a look. And people will go on and read your article in your newsletter. If it's a newsletter, you want them to subscribe, which then allows them to see everything that you put out onto a newsletter banner. So I really do think that that's a good one. It's a very minor one in most people's book, but I do think that that's going to have an impact and certainly a big improvement on our articles and newsletters. Much better to have a video than a static image at the top, I think.
Oh, I absolutely agree. I tested it out a couple of weeks ago when it came out, and I thought this is actually quite clever because some people like to consume content as video, others like to just read a short post, others like long form content and really get into the meatiness, and this combines both.
Yeah.
So, or combines all of it actually, when you have it as an article or as a newsletter, and it just makes it so much more dynamic
Yeah.
as well, adding that video there. I'm one who tends to watch videos on mute, and so
Mm.
the captions are very important.
Oh, me
But
too.
I'd rather read, I love reading the newspaper. I'd still like to get a newspaper and open the pages.
Mm.
Okay.
Newsprint all over your hands, if only.
Yeah, yes, that's right. But having that LinkedIn newsletter option is so powerful. There are so many things that we can find out from you, Lynnaire, that I think we need to have a podcast episode that just focuses on LinkedIn itself. But it has been so fascinating finding out about you and your garden and your journalism career. It actually sounds like you were born to do this.
I feel like
Linkability
I
was
found my
waiting for
home.
you. Yes, without a doubt. And also, what it is, it's really inspiring because you've reinvented how you do things in your career as well. You started out in journalism, but then you transitioned and you went freelance, and there's the copywriting, but always the common thread throughout everything leading you to leading linkability has been communication, asking questions, being
Mm.
curious, writing well, telling the story, and that's what you do so well. And also you've kind of embraced the LinkedIn community as well and provide so much value. So thank you for that, Lynnaire. And do you have any parting thoughts? Oh, before you provide the parting thoughts, I'd like to tell everybody, please follow Lynnaire Johnston on LinkedIn. All you need to do is to type in Lynnaire Johnston LinkedIn and you will find her. Okay. In fact, even on Google, you will just find her that way. Yes. And have a look, check out Linkability. Lynnaire has a Linkability group that is wonderfully supportive, and you'll learn so much about LinkedIn and how you can actually leverage it for your own business and your career too. So thank you, Lynnaire. And now I want to hear your final words of wisdom.
I always get a bit nervous when this question comes up, Jane, because there are so many candidates for this particular one. I think, though, that I would like people who may not have been yet convinced about LinkedIn and
Mm.
its value, who see it as somewhere to put their CV online, to take another look, to really see how it could be useful for them in their business or their job search or career change, and look at it from a different perspective. Look at it from a learning perspective. What can they learn from other people? Look at it from a networking perspective. Who can they meet on LinkedIn that they would really like to get to know? And look at it from a content or visibility perspective. Would they like to be known as an expert in their field, as a thought leader potentially, and use LinkedIn's features in terms of publishing content in order to be able to do that? Because I think that if they did, they would be very pleasantly surprised at how much LinkedIn has changed and just what it has to offer, Jane.
Wise words, and LinkedIn is a fabulous platform. 1 billion people cannot be wrong. Thank you so much for your time, Lynnaire. And you will come on again and we will talk in depth on LinkedIn very soon.
Been a pleasure, and it will be a pleasure to talk again.
If If you enjoyed today's episode of Your Career Podcast, please subscribe because it helps me to reach more people looking for career inspiration and support. And I have something for you. Download my career resources at janejacksoncoach.com. While you're there, take my 2-minute career success quiz. You'll get your results and analysis immediately and recommendations tailored to your specific career needs. See you soon.